He said he just wanted to talk, but the conversation in the dorm changed my life forever. He said he just wanted to talk. But the way he looked at me like he already knew the parts of me I was still too scared to name was the first unraveling of everything I thought I had under control. My name is Min. I was 18, fresh off a plane from California, and praying that 4 years at a university 2 time zones away from my Vietnamese parents might finally give me the space to breathe. To figure out who I was. Or at least pretend long enough that no one would notice the way I flinched every time someone joked about who was the man in a relationship. Freshman year at a liberal arts college in upstate New York should have been my blank slate. But I didn't expect to meet Theo. Theo Devlin. My roommate. 6'1". A sharp jawline, pale skin like he only stepped into sunlight for brief cameos, and an offbeat smile that made you wonder what secret joke he wasn't telling you. He walked in the first day with one duffel bag, a camera slung around his neck, and a confidence I mistook for arrogance. Until he said, "Hey. You look nervous. Want the bed by the window?" I didn't even have time to lie. That first week was a blur of awkward small talk, orientation events, and pretending I liked the dining hall food. Theo, Thuff moved through campus like he'd always belonged. He said hi to people he barely knew. He cracked jokes with professors. And every night, he asked questions. About me. Real ones. So, what did you leave behind in California? Parents. Expectations. A closet. He didn't flinch. Just nodded. 2 weeks in, it was a Friday night, and our floor was buzzing. Music, people laughing, the scent of weed floating from room 218. Theo sat cross-legged on his bed, flipping through Polaroids he'd taken of people on campus. I was on my laptop, pretending to write an essay. "You ever feel like you're just not waiting?" he asked suddenly. "For what?" "For someone to see you." I blinked. "You mean, like, the real you?" "Yeah." I swallowed hard. My hands were cold. I didn't answer. He looked at me then. Really looked. Eyes soft, searching. "You don't have to tell me. But if you ever want to talk about anything, I'm not going anywhere." I laughed. It sounded hollow. "What, like a therapy session?" He shrugged. "More like that, a truce. No hiding in here. We both get to be real." That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed thinking about how long I'd been hiding, even from myself. The church camps. The locker room silence. The way I memorized straight boy scripts like survival tools. By the second month, Theo and I were inseparable. We studied together, skipped dining hall lines to make instant ramen, stayed up watching obscure indie films he swore would change my understanding of time and narrative. I laughed at him. But I watched anyway. Because when the screen glowed against his face in the dark, I felt safe. Safe, and terrified. One rainy Thursday, I came back from class early. The door was ajar. Theo was inside, pacing. Talking to someone on speakerphone. "No, Mom, I'm not bringing anyone home for Thanksgiving. Because I don't feel like faking it again, okay? I'm tired." Pause. No. He doesn't know. I mean, maybe he does. But I'm not gonna be the first one to say it. I can't be. Click. He turned. Saw me. And I saw it, panic. The vulnerability. But instead of confronting it, I just said, "Sorry. Didn't mean to eavesdrop." He forced a laugh. "You know everything about me now. Guess we're even." I wish I had said something then. I wish I had walked over and told him he wasn't alone. That I'd been drowning in the same silence. But I didn't. Not until the night everything shattered. It was a Saturday in November. Snow had just started dusting the campus lawns. Theo convinced me to go to a queer open mic event hosted by the LGBTQ Student Alliance. I don't belong there, I told him. You do, he said, with a strange intensity. Trust me. The night was chaotic, messy, beautiful. People reading poetry, singing, crying, laughing. For the first time, I saw queer people not as a whisper or a slur, but as whole, vibrant humans. Free. Theo went up near the end. He read a piece called Room 304. I share this room with a boy who talks in his sleep. Who flinches at compliments and apologizes too often. Who looks at me like I'm holding a match too close to his secrets. And I love him. I stopped breathing. The room blurred. I didn't even know I was crying until I felt the wet on my cheeks. When he came back down, he looked at Menet with expectation, not even hope. Just fear. The kind that only exists when you've offered your truth, raw and trembling, to someone who might shatter it. I left. I didn't talk to him for 2 days. Then came Monday night. I walked in, and he was packing. Where are you going? I asked. He didn't look up. Requesting a room change. Figured it'd be easier for both of us. And that finale broke me. Don't, I said. My voice cracked. Please. Don't go. He froze. I stepped closer. I'm scared. Every day. Of what it means to feel this way. Of what people will say. Of what my parents will do. But the thing I'm most scared of is losing you. Theo turned slowly. His eyes were shining. You don't have to be ready, he said. Just don't run. And I didn't. That night, we talked. 4 hours. About everything. Our fears. Our families. Our dreams. The labels we were still figuring out. That was the night that changed everything. Not because we kissed. We didn't. Not because we figured it all out. We didn't. But because we chose to be honest. To be seen. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The next morning, everything felt different, not because anything had changed on the outside, but because I had stopped pretending on the inside. Theo greeted me with a quiet smile when I woke up. There was no dramatic music, no sweeping declarations, just 2 boys sitting in the soft silence of morning, trying to figure out what it meant to be real. I didn't go to class that day. Neither did Theo. We stayed in our room, talking in low voices, cautiously peeling back layers of ourselves. He told me he'd known he was gay since he was 13 but had never been able to say it out loud until his junior year of high school. I told him I didn't know what label fit me, but that the way I felt around him wasn't confusion anymore. It was clarity. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted. With .us. We don't have to do anything, he said. We can just be. That night, we watched a movie, shoulders brushing. Neither of us moved away. Days passed. November melted into December. People started flying home for the holidays. Theo didn't. Neither did I. I told my parents I'd stay on campus for winter programs, a lie they barely questioned as long as I kept my GPA up. I didn't tell them the truth. I wasn't ready. Theo and I spent winter break like we were in our own world. We cooked bad pasta, danced to cheesy music in our dorm room, built a snowman that collapsed within an hour. We took the bus to town and walked through thrift stores, pretending to be critics of the ugliest items we could find. Once, while standing under the yellow glow of a street lamp, Theo looked at me and asked, "Do you ever wish you could just start over?" "Every day," I replied. "But would you erase everything?" I thought for a moment. No. Just the fear. We kissed for the first time on New Year's Eve. It was nothing like the movies. No fireworks, no swelling soundtrack. Just two boys on a campus bench, lips cold from the air, hearts warm from finally not running. Coming out, though, that was another story. I thought about it all the time. What would my parents say? What would my church say? What would people in Little Saigon think when the son of the pastor's sister told the world he wasn't straight? Theo never pressured me. But I could see it in his eyes when he thought I wasn't looking, how much he wanted to hold my hand in public. How much he wished we didn't have to keep us behind closed doors. January brought snowstorms and new semesters. Classes got harder. Time moved faster. And then came the incident. We were walking back from the library one night, laughing about something dumb, when a group of guys from our floor walked by. Drunk. Loud. Cruel. "Look at the fags," one of them muttered. Theo stiffened. I tried to keep walking. But he turned around. "What did you say?" His voice was calm. Deadly calm. The guy, a tall lacrosse player named Adam, smirked. I said, "Maybe you should keep that sissy shit in your room." Theo stepped forward. "Or maybe you should keep your ignorance to yourself." Adam shoved him. Just once. But it was enough. I reacted before I could think. I grabbed Theo's arm. "Let's go. It's not worth it." He hesitated. His jaw clenched. Then he let me pull him away. Back in the dorm, he punched the wall. "Why do they get to exist like that? And we have to play nice?" I didn't have an answer. We reported it. The school launched an investigation. There were meetings, statements, carefully worded emails. Adam got a warning. Nothing more. Theo withdrew. He stopped going to events. Stopped laughing. He still talked to me, but it felt like there was a fog between us now. Something unspoken. One night, I found him sitting alone in the dark, staring at the wall. "Do you ever feel like this is all pointless?" he asked. "What do you mean?" "Like no matter how brave we are, the world's just gonna keep beating it out of us." I sat beside him. "I feel that way all the time." He leaned his head on my shoulder. "You think it'll ever get better?" I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Midterms came. I buried myself in work. Theo applied for a summer internship in San Francisco and got accepted. I didn't know what to feel, happy, proud, or terrified he'd go and never come back. "Will you miss me?" he asked one night, half joking. "I don't know," I said. "Will you miss me?" He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "Every damn day." But we never made plans. We just let the future sit between us like a ticking bomb. And then, April. I got a call from home. My uncle had died. Stroke. Sudden. I flew back to California, drowning in grief and guilt. I hadn't seen him in over a year. My family didn't even know about Theo. Didn't know I was in love. Didn't know I was more myself at college than I ever was at home. The funeral was a blur. Prayers. Smoke. Silence. My mother kept asking if I had a girlfriend. My father kept reminding me to stay focused. Be strong. Be a man. I didn't speak to Theo for a week. When I finally called, he sounded small. "I thought maybe you changed your mind about me." I almost did. Because being home was like slipping back into old skin-tight, suffocating, but familiar. When I got back to campus, everything felt fragile. Theo stood at the door, hands in his pockets. "Hey," he said. "Hey. I missed you." I hesitated. "Do you want to come in?" I asked. He nodded. Inside, he sat on his bed. I sat on mine. "You okay?" he asked. No. Do you want to talk? I did. So I did. I told him everything. About my family. My fear. My guilt. The way I hated myself for loving him sometimes, even though I didn't want to. The way I hated the world for making me feel that way. I don't want to lose you, I said. But I don't know how to keep you without losing everything else. He didn't speak. Just crossed the room and pulled me into a hug. The kind that says, I'm here. Even if you don't have it figured out yet. Whatever you choose, he whispered, I'll survive. But I'd rather survive it with you. We stayed like that for a long time. May came. Summer loomed. Theo left for San Francisco the day after finals. I hugged him at the bus stop. Neither of us cried. But my heart felt like it had been torn in two. I'll wait, he said. I didn't say anything. I just kissed him one last time. Back in our dorm room, I found a note under my pillow. Min. Don't let the world tell you how to exist. You're not broken. You're blooming. I love you. I'll always love you. Theo. I sat there, holding that note, and I finally let myself cry. Not because I was weak but because I had never felt stronger. Summer back in California was a strange limbo. I thought going home would feel like slipping back into something warm and safe. But instead, it felt like trying to wear a shirt that had shrunk in the wash tight in the wrong places, awkward around the edges, uncomfortable in ways I couldn't explain. My parents asked about classes. Grades. Scholarships. My mom made bun boihu and asked why I wasn't eating more. My dad lectured me about internships. No one asked if I was happy. No one asked who I was becoming. But I couldn't stop thinking about Theo. He called every few days. Sent pictures from the city rainbow crosswalks in the Castro, a cafe full of queer poets, a group of friends holding signs at a pride rally that read, Be loud. Be love. I wish you were here, he texted once. I stared at the message for 5 minutes before replying. Me too. But that was the truth and a lie all in one. Because the truth was I wasn't ready to be that visible. That loud. That free. And the lie was pretending I didn't want to be. One night, in late June, I sat on the roof of our house, staring at the stars. I had snuck up there as a kid, thinking it made me closer to something bigger. I did it again now, hoping for the same clarity. I pulled out Theo's note from my wallet. You're not broken. You're blooming. I whispered it under my breath. Like a prayer. Like a promise. And for the first time, I whispered something else too. I'm gay. The words floated into the night, carried off by the wind. There was no thunder. No bolt of lightning. Just me, breathing a little easier. But saying it to the stars was one thing. Saying it to my parents. That was war. I thought about waiting. About never telling them. About keeping Theo locked away in the part of me I only visited in dreams. But then July came, and with it, something that changed everything. My cousin came out. He posted a photo on Instagram, smiling beside his boyfriend, holding a rainbow flag at Pride in San Jose. It went viral in the Vietnamese community. And the backlash came fast. Relatives whispering. Aunties posting Bible verses in Facebook comments. My mother gasped when she saw the picture. My father muttered, shameful. I felt like I was underwater. Drowning in fear. That night, I texted Theo. I think I'm going to do it. Tell them. He didn't reply right away. Then. Only if you're safe. Promise me. I didn't promise. I couldn't. Because I didn't know. But the next day, at dinner, I couldn't hold it in any longer. My hands were shaking. I stared at the rice bowl, at the steam rising off the meat, at the familiarity I was about to fracture. Bah, me, I said quietly. Con muon noi chien. My mom looked up first. Chien gi ve con. I looked at both of them. My voice barely came out. Con la nuoi dong tin. Silence. No reaction. Just the sound of the clock ticking. Then, Kong, my dad said. Firm. Final. Kong duok noi and hung ju nu ve trong nane. My mom dropped her spoon. I tried to explain. That I wasn't sick. That it wasn't a phase. That it was me. But every word felt like shouting into a hurricane. They didn't scream. That would have been easier. They just shut down. We senoi chien lai sao, my father said, standing up. Kai con ten tau lai. They didn't talk to me for the next 2 days. I cried alone in my room, phone buzzing with texts from Theo that I couldn't bring myself to answer. On the 3rd day, my mother knocked. She brought in fruit. Sat at the edge of my bed. Her eyes were red. Con chik kong, she asked softly. I nodded. My voice cracked. Con de chik tu lao roy. She looked down. Mi kong huenoi. And hung mi kong muon mat con. I reached out. She took my hand. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it wasn't rejection either. It was a start. Theo picked me up from the airport in August. I saw him before he saw me standing there in his thrifted denim jacket, sunglasses perched on messy hair, holding a handmade cardboard sign that read, Min, my love. I ran to him. For the first time in my life, I kissed someone I loved in a public place. And I didn't care who saw. He drove us back to campus, singing along to some song I didn't know. I stared out the window, watching the summer blur into possibility. I told them, I said. He turned the music down. What? My parents. I told them everything. He didn't speak at first. Then he reached across the gear shift and grabbed my hand. You're incredible, he whispered. I didn't feel incredible. I felt exhausted. Raw. But when he looked at me like that, like I was someone worth believing, I almost did. Sophomore year was different. We got a double room again, but this time, everyone knew we were together. Some people congratulated us. Some avoided us. Some whispered. But we didn't hide. It wasn't always easy. There were nights when I had panic attacks. Days when Theo came home quiet, angry from microaggressions at his internship. Times we fought because I was still figuring myself out, and he already had. But we kept choosing each other. He took me to queer community meetings. I took him to Vietnamese Student Association events. We built a life that was part messy, part magic. My parents called once a week. They didn't say the word, gay. But they asked about my classes. My meals. Whether I was warm enough. Sometimes that's the most you get. And sometimes, that's enough for now. One afternoon, as the leaves turned gold again, Theo and I sat on the dorm rooftop, our secret place. He leaned against me, warm and steady. You know, he said, when I met you, I thought you were going to break my heart. I laughed. Same. But you didn't. Not yet, I teased. He smiled. Don't. I looked at him. At his freckled face, the way his eyes crinkled when he was pretending not to cry, the quiet strength he carried like armor. I won't, I said. And I meant it. Spring of junior year brought with it an invitation that would change everything again. Theo was selected to showcase his photography at a national queer arts conference in D.C. His project, titled Unspoken Spaces, featured portraits of queer students from conservative backgrounds, each image paired with a single quote. He had taken a photo of me, sitting cross-legged on the windowsill in our dorm, the morning light catching just the edges of my face, my eyes half closed like I was mid-thought. The quote, "I'm still afraid, but now I speak anyway." When I saw it in the lineup, printed large and framed, I froze. "You should have asked me," I said, my voice trembling. Theo looked at me, guilt flickering behind his eyes. "I didn't want to ask. I wanted you to see it like this, not as a secret, but as something strong. Beautiful." I walked away. Not because I was angry, but because I was scared of what it meant to be seen like that. To be named. Immortalized. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I stood in front of the photo again. This time, I didn't look away. People passed by, reading my quote. Some smiled. Some nodded quietly. One person, a boy maybe 17, stood staring for nearly 10 minutes. Then he wiped his eyes and left. And that was when it hit me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming. The conference ended. The photo stayed up, printed in the event zine that circulated to hundreds of schools across the country. I didn't hide it when I got back to campus. I showed it to my friends. I even posted it online. My father didn't call for a week after he saw it. When he finally did, all he said was, "Are you eating well?" That was his way of saying, "I'm still here." That was enough for now. Theo and I moved off campus for senior year. A tiny apartment with leaky pipes and squeaky floors, but it was ours. We painted one wall mustard yellow. We hosted small dinners with other queer students. We adopted a fish named Junebug that died within 2 weeks and held a full memorial for it. Some nights we fought about dishes, about boundaries, about the future. But most nights, we curled up on the second-hand couch, reading or listening to music or simply sitting in silence that felt more intimate than words. One evening, I came home to find Theo on the balcony, eyes glistening. "What's wrong?" I asked. He held out his phone. A message from his father, who had refused to speak to him since he came out 4 years ago. "Saw your photos. I'm proud of you." Theo didn't say anything. Just pulled me into his chest and cried. Not all stories end in reconciliation. But some do. And that's enough to keep hoping. Graduation day was bright and unreal. My parents flew in. They met Theo. It was awkward, formal, and stiff, but they shook hands. My mom gave him a small wrapped box of tea. My father said thank you. Later, Theo and I walked across the stage one after the other. When I took my diploma, I looked into the crowd and I saw my dad clapping. Not wildly. Not smiling. But clapping. And somehow, that mattered more than anything. Now, it's been 3 years since that conversation in the dorm room. I'm living in Seattle, working for a youth nonprofit that supports queer kids from immigrant families. Theo teaches photography workshops and is working on his first book. We live in a loft with too many plants, not enough counter space, and one perpetually lazy orange cat named Fo. We still fight sometimes. About things that matter. About things that don't. But we always come back to the couch. To each other. Sometimes, when I'm holding him late at night, I think about that first night, how scared I was, how small I felt, how much I didn't know. And I whisper, half to him, half to myself. "You changed my life." And he always replies, sleepily, always the same way. "You saved mine." The thing no one tells you about coming out isn't how hard it is, you probably already know that. It's how ongoing it is. You come out every day. In your clothes, in your words, in who you love, in what you choose to correct and what you let slide. You come out when you're filling out HR forms, when a coworker asks if you have a girlfriend, when a family friend asks if you're still single. But with every truth you speak, the fear gets smaller. And the space inside you, the space that belongs to you, gets bigger. If you're reading this, and you're still hiding, still watching the world through a crack in the closet door, I hope you know this. You are not broken. You are blooming. And the world is waiting for you.